Brother Cadence.
We don't have those grandmothers anymore. We got rid of them. If they're not dead, they're in nursing homes. We don't have time for them. We don't have no place in our apartments for them. Apartments too static in the first place. I'm saying that what we have to do is to focus our education on getting back what slavery and colonialism took away. That is the attitude of ruling a nation. All of it. No people can rise from a lower to a higher position until they're willing to accept some form of collective discipline. Somebody among you must be wise enough, study hard enough to figure out the direction. You must respect the person well enough when that person says, this is the way we go. Realize that person has devoted some time in figuring it out. And you're going to have to follow until it proves that that's not the way to go. Leadership must be a sacred mission and not just something someone pop up and do and proclaim. And we must begin to train young men from birth to be a leader. Whether he ever leads anything other than himself is not the issue. He has the training to be that. He's a better human being by virtue of having that training, even if he only leads himself. He learns how to lead his family with honor and with some kind of dignity. We have to begin to study. We have to do less proclaiming and more investigating. We have to investigate people who devote their lives to us, because our track record in supporting people who devote their lives to us is not good. It's not good. It's not good. J.E. Rogers, he devoted most of his life, 50 years of his life, looking at the African personality and its impact on the history of the world, and preserved for us the information. He died $16,000 in debt. William Leo Hansberry taught 37 years at Howard University, the greatest Africanist that we've yet to produce in the Western world. He never got a salary at Howard above $15,000 a year. Now we've got black conservatives who make $15,000 a lecture. More than a Hansberry made in a year. Cyphers, a brilliant man from Antigua, wrote a work on who are the Ethiopians. Another work on the African contribution to the concept of the brotherhood of man. Several books, none of them published. He died. His wife is dead. His adopted son, not too clear what to do with his manuscripts. Fortunately, I have copies of most of them in my home, but I don't have the right to publish them because you can't talk to the son about it. Hansberry did a 4-volume history of Africa before he died. I'm working on that. We have to be introduced to the finest minds we've got. Let them function. Let them operate. Chancellor Williams died of Old Thomas at a charity hospital, city hospital in Washington. Chancellor Williams took good care of himself, saved money, invested in real estate. In the income, the yearly income from his property was over $20,000 a year. Why did he die broke? Someone had the power of attorney and signed out his money and spent it, most of his family. Some hustler in Washington took up $27,000 for our revolutionary elders, put it in his pocket, and it's still in his pocket. The chance is dead in his grave. But to take up a collection to bury John Jackson. Well, don't worry about me.
All right.
I got that taken care of.
All right.
I'm not rich, I'm not poor, and I'm not begging either. I never thought I'd stay on any job long enough to get a pension. The pension system of the City University, City Department of Higher Education collapsed. I get a little pension. Till they eliminate the Social Security cut, I get a little from that. My old beat-up brownstone house is paid for.
Right.
And I got 2 self-supporting children.
Right.
They don't need me. And decent insurances. In the final analysis, what am I saying? I'm saying that there was a time in our life when people who made a profession out of thinking and planning and finding a better way for you didn't have to worry about that creature comfort because you took care of that. Didn't have to worry about that travel because you took care of that. But when you wanted something thought out or planned, you could go to them and get it done. Because their profession was to think things out and chart a clear course for us. We've lost the old people in the neighborhood. We did not keep their minds alive. We never heard of anything called old timers. Alzheimer's, if I'm pronouncing it right. We never heard of it. People kept their mind good, in good shape, and they were articulate till the end of their lives and contributing. Going to church and arguing with the ministers and the deacons and doing all the things that old people do. They had that family connection. Our journey toward nationhood will have to begin when we take education seriously.
All right.
There is no proper education except an education for liberation.
All right.
You are not to be educated to fit into other people's schemes. You are to create a scheme that's protective of your own aspirations, your hopes, and your desires, and that connects you with what you used to be so you can understand what you are and estimate what you still have to be. For the role of education. The role of education and history is the same as the relationship of a mother to a child. You dare not live without it. You cannot be born without it. You cannot thrive without it. We have to stop looking at ourselves in isolated pockets. I think the mission of the Africans away from home, because they have been closer to information and basic technology and basic science than any other Africans in the world. The mission of these Africans is to deliver Africa and secure Africa for all African people everywhere. We have to stop dividing ourselves based on who conquered us and where the slave ships put us down. And realize the common denominator is where the slave ships took us from. A bigoted cab driver don't care if you're from Carolina, Georgia, Africa, or Jamaica. Downtown, when he see your black face, he don't want to carry you. He put up the off-duty sign and move on. He's a better Pan-Africanist than you are. You divided yourself not only based on who came from what island, who came from islands, who came from the mainland, as though you had something to do with it. You had no control over it anyway. You didn't choose to say, now I want to be on that island instead of that one. You had no choice. And we had no choice being put down over here. And the Africans suffered that protracted drain for 500 years. Then he's going to be educated. He moved away from the village education, the education under the tree with the old men, the education that the old women gave the young girls, the education that the old men gave the young men. When we moved away from our educational system, we were in trouble. Other people get good education in other people's educational systems, but the basis of it is the education they get at home. When we have to understand that real education for liberation starts at home with our own children, with our own mate, and then we send a strong child into the school with self-confidence, he's going to learn something no matter how you teach him. No matter how big of a teacher gets, 2 and 2 still makes 4. They can learn even from a challenge a bigger. But they have to have a base from which they came from that give them strength and self-confidence. Not get into the NACP syndrome. Just get close to them. Soak it up through osmosis. We just want to be with them. We bust our children into their school. They didn't bust their children into ours. And wasn't going to think about it. Now we see how we're coming back to preserving an institution where you have control and removing these oppression-minded black administrators who trying to make imitation white people out of you, and letting them know there's nothing wrong with being an African human being. We will build universities not only good enough for us, but good enough for other people. But we will let it be known, if it's ours, we rule it by an ideology we set down. And if you don't want to respect that, the door that lets you in will let you out. Now Harvard was established to train white Protestant young men how to rule the world. I did not say blacks cannot get a good education at Harvard, so long as you remember that the main intent of Harvard is to train white Protestant young men to rule the world. You can take from them something that you can use to annihilate them if you're unique about it. But have no illusion about Harvard being put there for your sake. If you go there with that in mind, you can come back with something. But if you come back with a Harvard accent, especially looking down your nose, you are an educated fool. Educated fool. Educated fool. Inasmuch as education and institutional building is essential to all the people on this earth, dare we neglect it? Because if we neglect it, we will write off freedom for our children for this time and any time in the future. People rise and fall within the structure of institutions of their own creation, institutions they can use to command the respect of other people. And now when Malcolm X said, by any means necessary, all he is saying is that a slave has no moral obligation to his slave master. You will free yourself from him by any means necessary, but do it strategically. When you see all of those guns and all that chemicals all masked against you, don't play a fool and think you alone gonna come up against that. You pull back and strategize. And remember, there were 3 black women who brought off a revolt in the Virgin Islands, all called queens. Mary Bottombelly, Mary Firebun, she's the one that carried the oil and to burn down the plantations. And when she saw a slave being beaten during the day, the slave wanted to lift his hand to fight, she quietly got to him and said, night will come and fire will burn, and time is longer than the rope. So if he waited, took that beating, waited till the sun fell, she come and burn that plantation down. Burn that plantation down. Burn that plantation down. That's a pity. You don't know about the great black men and women of your own history. All right. The Virgin Islands was then under the Danes. So the King of Denmark sent for them. Send me the men who dare to defy my order. 3 straggling women marched in. They had outjumped the best armies of the Danes. He sent them to teach military science in the military school. 3 queens of the Virgin Islands. There was a 4th queen, sometime not recognized. She was slightly mulatto, and she slept around with the governor. And one governor was so taken by her He would declare all the slaves free. The Danes called him home and put him in an insane asylum. So she began to sleep with another governor. And a rebel called Bubho came to her and told her that certain time of the night we're going to invade the palace and cut the governor's throat and burn the palace down. She was mortified, insulted. How dare you assume that I'm not a part of the revolution? She knew that she was going to lose all the dresses, the carriages, and she had the best. She was the governor's mistress. You're going to send a soldier from the revolution just to burn the house down and cut the governor's throat? I will do that little job before I leave to join the revolution. Leave it to me. So much of your beautiful history you have not been exposed to. There is no children's book on Granny Nanny of Jamaica. There's no book of any consequence. It's one written by an Englishman. It's a good fair telling of Mary Seacole, who came before Florence Nightingale and took her sharp right straight into the lines. Florence Nightingale waited behind to mend the soldiers they brought back from the line. Mary Seacole went right straight on the line, right into the battle area. Yet Mary Seacole got lost from history. Florence Nightingale got her place in history because she's white. What I'm saying is that there's enough strength, there's enough heroic, there's enough examples already created. We don't have to make comparison to pit one thing against the other. We can look into our history and find the examples of men who stood tall and defied empires against all kinds of odds. Our education for a new reality will have to focus on the mind of our children. We have to will to them the job of completing liberation. They cannot complete that job unless we give them information and inspiration and direction and love. We must let them know, instead of turning on each other, there is an enemy out there. They still have to be fought. There's a people out there that still have to be liberated. There are countries, 52 countries in Africa, not one African country, still have to be liberated. There are borders that need to be erased so Africans can live in great federated states other than these little miniature borders cut up by the English and other colonial powers. We have to come into our own. There's a book called The Tribes that analyzed all the potential people in power and left us out. They assume that we are a political basket case, incapable of power. What your mission should be is to prove them wrong. Proving them wrong and restoring Africa. If that is your mission, then that is the legacy that you leave for your children and the still more beautiful ones waiting to be born. Thank you.